This is a business tutorial on building organization charts and learning how to use them as a strategic tool. The first thing I'm going to show you is called the Touchstone Business System. This is a web tool that business owners use to build, organize, and disseminate all the business procedures and processes that they need so desperately to run their businesses. As I discuss building organization charts and specifically using them as a management tool, I'm going to be using the Touchstone Business System and showing you various parts of it. If you're interested more in the Touchstone Business System, how it works, and what it's about, at the end of this presentation, I will give you a web address to go to where you can find out more about the system itself. So one of the key strategic tools that every business needs is an organization chart. And building an organization chart is one thing, but actually learning how to use it as a strategic tool is quite another. So as I discuss building organization charts, make sure that you try to pay attention to the points I make about how to really use it as a tool to manage and grow your business. So one of the very first things that you want to remember before you would start building your organization chart is that you want to build it for the future. You want to build it so that is a picture of your business in the future. This way you can use it to guide and grow your business. If you just documented what exists now in your business, all you'd have is a picture of that. What you really need is a picture of what it's going to be in the future so that you can move towards it. So there's a few key goals that you want to come up with before you would start building your organization chart that's really going to help you use it or build it for the future. First thing you want to come up with is a sales goal, really simple, revenue goal. Look about 2 years in the future. I think anything more than 2 years is a little bit hard to plan for. Anything less than 2 years is really just an annual plan. So 2 years is a good time frame to use. Create a revenue goal that is doable. Choose something that you've thought through and you know you can attain. If you create a lofty goal and you never get there, then you're going to blame the whole goal setting process and probably never do it again. So really focus on something that you know is doable. Next thing you want to do is focus on profitability. Really important. A business can make all the sales in the world, but if it's not profitable, then there's really no point in owning it. So the very first profit goal you want to come up with is your variable cost goal. Variable costs are the expenses that it takes for you to deliver your product or service. So all the expenses to deliver the product or service, that's your variable costs. Every time a dollar comes in, a certain amount of that money goes right out the door to deliver the product or service. If you're in manufacturing, construction, production, we're mainly talking about labor and materials. If you're a service business, it's labor. It's all your service work. So come up with a doable variable cost goal for your business. Next, think about your fixed costs. Create a goal for what your fixed costs are going to be. Fixed costs are all of your management salaries. Now, if we shift back to the Touchstone Business System, this is the majority of your fixed costs. Up here, all the management salaries. This department here, your administration and finance, that's an overhead cost. Sales and marketing, typically a fixed cost. If you're dealing with commission sales, then the commissions, of course, will be a variable cost because that varies with sales. The more sales you make, the more of that you pay out. But aside from that, sales and marketing expenses are in your fixed cost section. In addition to that, you want to think of your lights, your rent, your insurance, all the expenses that are day-to-day expenses for your business. Once you've got your fixed cost goal set, the next is to think about net profit. Net profit is everything that's left over to pay the shareholders, to pay the owner of the business, and to invest back in the business. Once the variable costs are paid, the fixed costs, Whatever's left over, that's your net profit. So come up with a good net profit goal. Net profits can range anywhere from, I'd say, 5% would be a minimum, all the way up to, 25% is the highest I've seen, and that was in a really successful service business. If you're in construction, production, manufacturing, you're probably going to get more, anywhere between 5 and 12%. There's a website that has a lot of resources on good net profits. You can research that on the internet if you don't have an idea of what it is. Or what a good one is for your business. The only thing that I would suggest is anything less than 5% is pretty hard to justify. So think about what a good net profit is for your business. So in the end, you should have something that looks sort of like this. Sales goal at the top. What will your business be able to generate or make in revenue and sales after the end of 2 years? So you're looking in the future. Then come up with your variable cost goal. Let's say it's around 60%. That means that 60 cents of every dollar that comes in goes right out the door for variable costs. That leaves you 40% left over. In this example, 30% of that's going for fixed costs, leaving 10% net profit. So this is a model of profitability of a future organization, and this is the basic goals that you want to come up with before you would start your organization chart. So now focusing in specifically on the organization chart. Now that we've got a picture of this profitable business in the future, we're going to build an organization chart, which is a model of that business. So starting from top to bottom, very first position you see right here is called owners, board of directors, shareholders. This is the entity that drives strategy. They sit, develop strategy, think like entrepreneurs, come up with a plan, and then that plan is then implemented throughout the company. Having a board of directors, or at least if it's just a person or a position who sits and develops strategy, is extremely important. A board of directors isn't just constructed so that you can comply with your corporate guidelines. It's there to represent the entrepreneurial part of the business, where you sit down and spend time developing strategy. So this first box is very important. Next box, this is president, general manager, whatever you want to call it. This position implements the strategy. Up here, the strategy is developed, conceived of, derived. Then it is then implemented by the president. The president drives strategy, implements it company-wide. They also manage the key department managers, these three. Every business needs to have oversight and management. In this structure, we see a simple example of a president who manages key departments. Each of these departments is then managed by a key manager. A lot of small businesses try to do without this level in their organization. It's because of lack of knowledge about why it's important, lack of resources. But again, you have to remember that we're building this organization chart for the future. And if a business that is profitable and flourishes has got to have managerial oversight. It's got to have managers within each of the key departments which recruit, hire, train, keep on track, hold accountable all the employees below, but then they also implement the strategy that is given by management above. They think about what is being done, how it's being done, how it can be done better. It's called innovation. This is essential to the profitable running of a business. So again, president takes the strategy, implements it through the key departments. Each key manager then guides and directs the results of those departments. In this example, we have 3 key departments or functional areas. Every business has got these 3 key areas or results that it has to attain. Doesn't matter what kind of business it is, these 3 areas always need to be in existence. The first is marketing and sales, right here. This is getting new business in the door. The next is production or operations, the delivery of the product or service. And the last is administration and finance. This is the department that provides the support services for the rest of the company. So in every business, these three main results have to exist, and they should be represented on your organization charts. Even if you're a production company that outsources all of your sales, you'll have a bigger production department, but you're still going to need sales. Even if these are all subcontracted positions, there still needs to be an entity that is overseeing the sales process. And same is true is if you're a sales organization, this department's big, but there still is a delivery of the product or service. So on your organization charts, three main areas or three main results. Now I'm going to go into each of these departments and talk about how to construct them and what are the key positions that need to be within them. First, starting here with sales and marketing. There are three key things that happen in sales and marketing. The first is marketing strategy, typically done by the manager right here. The strategy is developing a marketing plan, coming up with deciding who your target market is, how they think and make decisions about things, where they are in your geographic area, what percentage of that geographic area do you have, where should you do your advertising. So all of this is the strategic side of marketing called marketing strategy. That's essential to do. It's the first piece before you can do anything else effectively. Second thing that happens is lead generation right here. Lead generation, generating of qualified leads, or advertising, same thing. This is the systems, the people, the positions necessary to generate qualified leads. The next thing that happens is sales, the conversion of those leads. A lot of times what companies do is they'll create one position and call it sales, and then that position generates the leads, does the advertising, and converts the sales. This is missing an opportunity to see and experience these two separate processes and systems on their own. The more money you spend over here generating qualified leads, the less money you're going to have to spend here converting those leads. So think about these two systems as separate, and on your organization chart, represent the positions that are necessary to get these two key results. Think about the lead generation. What is it going to take to generate qualified leads for your business? How much money are you going to need to spend to generate a qualified lead? Think about, a lot of businesses do lead generation through word of mouth and referral. So it's a great thing. It's the way most businesses get started. It says a lot about the production process. You must be doing really well in delivering your product or service. The issue with it is it's not proactive. You have to wait and see what comes towards you. And a lot of times what comes isn't necessarily your target market, isn't the most profitable business for you, is not the ideal customer. So word of mouth and referral is a good thing, but it's never enough. You also need, in addition to that, proactive lead generation systems. The kind of systems where you know you can put a certain amount of money into it and it's going to produce a certain amount of qualified leads. So in the beginning of this conversation, we were talking about your profitability goals, coming up with these goals, setting a marketing budget, putting that into your fixed costs, growing your business to a certain amount. So what you want to do when you're building your organization chart is really think about what it's going to take to grow your business the way that you've planned. How many leads are you going to need, and what's that going to cost you? And what kinds of positions are you going to need to have to be producing those leads? After you've thought that through, then think about sales. Think about the number of positions, the types of positions you're going to need to convert those qualified leads. All these qualified leads are coming in, then the salespeople convert them. You want to think about your sales cycle, what the process is for you converting a lead, and then consider the amount of positions you're going to need to then be developing and working with those leads. It's a whole different picture when you think about these two systems separately, the generation of the leads and the conversion of the leads. This is absolutely critical when you have a business that spends a lot on sales. If you've got an expensive, long sales process where you're doing estimates and proposals, and it's taking a lot of time and experience to do those, you want those salespeople to be dealing with qualified leads. So consider again what you're going to need to spend to generate the leads, and then ultimately what positions you're going to need to then be converting those leads. This whole area of sales and marketing is highly quantifiable. It's a science. It's not an art. A lot of people assume it's an art, but it's not. It's really a science. And what I mean by that is it's calculated. If you have correct, adequate systems in place, they're going to produce reliable results over and over again. You're going to have to tweak them and innovate them as you go, but for the most part, once you find a successful lead generation method, it's going to produce qualified leads at a consistent rate. And if you've got a sales process and you're putting qualified leads into it, those leads will convert at a consistent rate. This is absolutely essential because, as most of you know, being able to control your sales is essential in operating a small business. So once you've got your sales and marketing department set, the next step is to move here to production and start constructing your production or your delivery department. This is where all the leads come, all the sales come in, and they are delivered. This is where you deliver your product or service. Now, back in the beginning, when we were talking about profitability goals, in my example, I was saying that my variable costs, or the cost to deliver my product or service here, was going to be 60%. So that means that every dollar that comes in, 60 cents of that is going to deliver the product or service, 60%, leaving me 40% left over to pay everything else and get a profit. Now, what do you think happens when in 1 month, maybe it's 60%, then in the next month, it's 75 cents? Then maybe you got a project and service projects that just go wrong, and in the next month, it's 80%. This is why businesses who have a lot of sales don't necessarily have a lot of profits. It's all won or lost here in the production department. The minute it takes you 75 cents of every dollar to deliver the product or service is the same minute you're never going to earn a profit. So I'm making this point because one of the key things to think about in your production is efficiency. Being able to have a consistent delivery of the product or service. Now, there are a couple strategies that you can implement when constructing this department to help with efficiencies. One is right here. Here we see an entry-level position in the organization. This is where we hire people. Then we train them up to this position. This is called a growth path, or layering your positions. Here people are hired, and maybe through my quantification, I know that it takes 3 months to take someone from entry-level up to this position. Maybe here, they're doing it for 75 cents on every dollar. But once they're up here, it has to be 60 cents. So here I've got a plan to train and develop my talent from the bottom up. And I'm planning for the expense of that. The mistake a lot of small business owners make is they try to hire this box right here, the lead tech. They try to hire this one. They go out and say, I need someone qualified, experienced, already trained so they can just take over the work and do it well, just like this other guy I have. The issue with that is you never can find that person. Sometimes you get lucky, and I think this kind of perpetuates the myth that this is possible. Sometimes you get lucky and you find an experienced person to put into that box. Most of the time, you have to then deal with all of the things that they do well and don't do well, their bad personalities. The worst of this is that you become dependent upon these people. You can't replace them. If they leave, you're stuck. So think about building a business where you can grow your own experienced technicians and service people, where you can start at an entry level and grow them up. Because if you always try to hire in this box, you're never going to grow a profitable company. Now, the question people always ask when I say this is, well, what if I spend all this time and money training up people and then they get experienced in this box and then they go work for my competition? Well, the truth of the matter is that's going to happen. The only thing that you can do about it is create a game worth playing. Create the kind of company where people want to stay. Create the kind of environment where they're managed well. It's a nice place to be. It's an exciting workplace. Create a company where people want to be and your employees will stay. That's the only thing you can do, because the alternative is to try to always hire in this box, and that's going to continue to be frustrating and unworkable. So again, the first strategy to implement here in building of your production department is think about levels or layers. Think about the entry-level positions and then the senior positions. Another thing to consider is measuring efficiencies. Super important. If you're going to know whether it takes 60 cents or 75 cents of every dollar to deliver the product or service, the only way you can know is if you measure it. And this is simpler than you think. I'm talking about time cards for production positions where they're writing down the time it takes them to do things. For service companies, time logs, absolutely critical. Every good service company, every employee, every minute of the day is doing a time log. And this is because you need to measure the efficiencies or the productivity of what they're doing, not only for capacity planning, but also so you can gauge whether it's profitable or not. That's the key. A lot of businesses act surprised when they get to the end of the month and there's no profits left. And they're like, whoa, what happened this month? You're never going to know. And you're never going to know ahead of time unless you measure efficiencies. So track time all the time. Don't ever let an employee tell you, I'm too busy, I'm not filling out the time card, this is too hard, it takes too much time. Every time they're not filling that out and you're not collecting that information, you're losing valuable information about the efficiency of your business. So time tracking, absolutely important. Another position I want to point out here in operations is customer support. It's this one right here. Some of the way that profitability is shot in a production department is when there's problems. Some fire starts burning, some issue happens, and all these people start scrambling around trying to solve the problem. And they're so busy with everything else that they're doing, they just stick a Band-Aid on it and try to make it go away and then move on to the next thing. Meanwhile, not only is efficiency or productivity lost for the day, but that problem's going to come back up again. It might be 6 months, it might be 2 weeks. But every time it does, it's costing you more and more money. We call this holes in the bucket. It's just your money draining out and you don't know how or where. So a customer support position can be the answer to this. Now here I have it in production, but you can have it in sales if you want. It doesn't matter where it is, just the point that it exists. This position handles the problems. So the technicians or the service people don't stop what they're doing. They keep going, maintaining their efficiency for the day. The customer support position analyzes it, researches it, comes up with a solution for it, implements the solution. Then they do quality control in addition to that. They start to foresee things before they happen. They start to analyze things to then project future problems. So this kind of position is essential in a production department to ensure efficiency. So the key things, again, to remember about production is that this has to be done profitably, because this is where the money gets lost the quickest. If I had to boil down the most important thing that needs to happen to run a small business, it would be this. You have to be able to balance production right here with sales and marketing. It's a constant juggling act between the two. If every small business owner in the world had endless working capital, this wouldn't be an issue, because you'd have all this money in the bank, you'd build up production so it had everyone trained and ready to go, and then you'd ramp up sales. It'd be no problem. But the majority of small businesses don't have this luxury. They have to grow their businesses from within. So they're constantly having to do the juggling or the balancing act between these two departments. If sales is flourishing, tons of sales coming in, and all of it gets dumped onto production, and the production department isn't ready, in other words, there's not enough trained people to do the work, then the business is lost. You can have all the sales in the world, but if you can't efficiently deliver those sales, then there's no profits. And the opposite is true. If you have all these trained technicians, everyone's set, ready to go, and there's no sales, then you're sitting on all this overhead. So the organization chart can help you with this juggling act. If you use it as the strategy tool, you can see where you're going to have to develop lead generation positions, hire sales positions to convert those leads. Then as those leads start coming in, then you start bringing up your technicians and you add one and then you balance the other and the other until it starts to grow. Next or last department is called administration and finance. This is typically called the overhead department because it's all overhead. What a lot of people do with this department is try and minimize it. A lot of business owners try to make it as small as possible because they see it as this overhead department. The issue with that is that that work has to happen. You can't not do the administration and finance work. So what ends up happening is all this work that should be going on in this department by these peoples is done by all these people. To the degree that these people are doing administration and finance work is the same degree that they're not income producing. This is the revenue generating department. This is the delivery department. These are the income generating departments. If you bog them down with administrative and finance work, they have less time to earn the money. So from that perspective, really look at the needs of administration and finance and decide what key positions you could have to take the administrative and finance work and minimize it for the rest of the company. So I'm going to go through this department and just talk about the key things that need to happen and the key positions that you want to think about. The first key thing that needs to happen in administration and finance is human resources. Generally done by the manager. Sometimes an administrator can handle that. Human resources are your legal, compliance, issues around how you handle your employees. The minute you have one employee, you have to think about all this. You have to implement it because it only takes one. It only takes doing it wrong once to cost you dearly. So with human resources, think about having an employee handbook and having that administered, good policies and procedures around taking time off, bonuses, how to fire someone, recruiting and hiring, contracts, agreements, proposals, all of your legal documents. This is stuff that's relatively easy to manage nowadays because there's a lot of templates and examples out there. So think about that and who's going to do that work within your organization. Another key position is bookkeeping or finance. This position takes all the information from all of these activities here and enters it into an accounting system right here. So all the data from all the activities gets entered into an accounting system. This accounting system then generates reports like profit and loss, balance sheet, cash flow, budgets, project planning, job costing, all the vital statistics that your business generates, the results, you might say. If you don't have someone entering that data, if you're trying to do it yourself, or people over here with no experience are trying to do it, if it's late, if it's entered incorrectly, you might as well just walk around in the dark. So this is absolutely essential. Nowadays, you can go out and hire a bookkeeping expert for, depending on your area, $30 to like $50 an hour. Bring them in one day a month if that's all you can afford, but get your data entry done. Get that information entered accurately into the accounting system so you can have reports to see how things are going. If you don't know how things are going, you're just kind of adding it as you go and trying to hope for the best in the end. So have adequate bookkeeping. That's the most important thing to think about. Have a bookkeeping position, someone who does the data entry and produces the reports. Administrator positions, these are important. It varies depending on your industry how important it is, but these are the kinds of positions that organize the paperwork, do the faxing, the filing, mailing of letters, answering the phone calls, taking messages. This is the kind of stuff that bogs all these people down. So think about what's necessary in this future organization of yours to really streamline the admin and get that out of the income producers into a place where it can happen efficiently. Next key position here is called information technology. A lot of smaller businesses would probably never have this as a full-time position. As your business gets to be, 5 million and above, depending on your industry, you might. But irregardless of whether it's an employee or not, you need to have a IT resource to go to. So have a subcontracted position, look for a company. What this work is about is ensuring that your computer infrastructure, your hardware and your software is maintained and operational. There's nothing that shuts down a business faster than when the computers go down. And what a lot of people don't realize is that if you have them maintained, then it's less likely that this is going to happen. So if you have your computers cleaned, you have them organized at least once a quarter, have an IT professional come in and manage your system, ensuring that you've got great backup, and also getting advice on the kinds of software that your business can use to help its operations. So I'll give you an example. Over here in sales and marketing, we talked about knowing where the leads are coming from, tracking how much they cost once they're in the sales cycle, knowing where they are in the sales cycle, what your conversion rates are. None of this is possible without a sales database. You can't do it on an Excel spreadsheet, and you certainly can't do it with a little, where did you come from form. It's just not going to work as your business really starts to grow. And if you don't measure this information, you have, no hope of really gaining control of your sales department. We talked about the science of marketing. Well, science equates to measurability and scientific calculations. If you don't have a system that will measure these for you, you'll never be able to really gauge the results. So a good sales database, really important. Another example is here in production. We talked about efficiencies, right? Well, there are software systems that will help measure time, do job costing, track efficiencies. So get some advice on what kind of software systems your business might need, and then also what kind of maintenance you could do on your computer systems. So once you've done what you're done building this organization chart, again, this is a picture of your business in the future. You want to then think about how you're going to get from where you are now to this chart in the future. So this is one of the key points about how to use this as a strategy tool. You can document organization charts all day long, but if you don't use them, of course, they're just paper that lay around. So create a plan for how you're going to get from where you are now today to this picture in the future, this picture of profitability, this organization structure. What happens to a lot of small businesses that don't have tools like this is they just kind of start to grow. They think they need someone, they add them, that person may do what they're supposed to do and may not, then they start to get really pressed and sales grow, then they gotta add someone else, and suddenly you have this hodgepodge of unprofitable positions that don't really have any clear accountabilities. Rather than doing that, use this organization chart as a guide to help step through the growth of your business. So there's a simple little process that I'll describe here for how you can do that. What you want to do is build a little financial plan. I'm not going to call it a budget because everyone will shriek at the thought. It's not a budget. It's a really simple financial plan. All you need to do is think about those 4 key goals that we came up with in the beginning. The 4 key goals. Think about the sales goal. Think about your variable cost goal, your fixed expenses, and your net profit. Just those 4. Get a spreadsheet out and put where you are today, what your sales are, what your variable costs are, what your fixed expenses are, what your net profit is. Then go quarter by quarter from today all the way till the end of 2 years or whatever you've set your future goal for, and show yourself how the business is going to grow quarter by quarter. Now, you don't need to do this month by month because that's really not a good planning cycle. Look at it in quarters, or if you're dealing with a business that has cyclical cycles, then plan it around your cycles or plan it within the cycles. So on a simple spreadsheet, if you don't like spreadsheets, do it on a piece of paper. It doesn't matter. Put down what your sales are now, what your variable costs are, what your fixed costs are, and what your net profit is. Then project it quarter by quarter until at the end of 2 years you get to these goals that you have made. Then look at your organization chart and think about this balancing act that we talked about, the balancing act between sales and between operations. Think about what it's going to take to grow the business from where you are now to your goal in 2 years. Consider the science of marketing. Think about the amount of money you're going to have to spend to generate qualified leads, and then what it's going to take to convert those leads. Decide which positions you need to hire first and second. As the business sales start to come in, think about your production department, the entry-level positions, when you'll hire those in, and how long it will take them to then get to a profitable technician or service person. So use this little mini financial plan and your organization chart to help you grow from where you are now to where you want to be. There's a few next steps that I want to discuss, because building of the organization chart is just the beginning. What you ultimately need to be able to really hire good people in and train them up and have a profitable running company is to fully document all of the positions on this chart and all of the procedures for the work that they do. So I'm going to spend a few minutes just talking about that. Every box on this organization chart ultimately needs a job description. A job description is a list of all of the procedures that this position, or all the work that this position does. So especially since you've built your organization chart for the future, you really want to look at each of the positions and decide what are all the procedures or all the processes that I want these positions to do. So here we have just a specific listing of all the procedures that this position, manager of marketing and sales, does. These are all the management procedures that they do, or that they're accountable for, and then all of the technical procedures that they're accountable for. Every box on the organization chart needs a job description. Here's another one, inside sales, a few strategic processes, and all the technical work that this position is responsible for. There is an exercise that we have called the 4 key functions. This exercise is designed to help business owners think about all of the procedures that are needed in their business, all the procedures that are necessary to run the business. The 4 key functions helps you to see the business holistically and then start to make lists of these key procedures. Then once all these procedures are documented on these lists, you then go back to your organization chart and start assigning accountability for those processes, creating your job descriptions. So I'm going to run through an example of this. Here in the 4 key functions, there are 4 key categories. Guiding the business, this is management and strategy work. Getting, this is the sales and marketing. Doing, it's the operations. And running is the administration and finance. On your guiding the business area, what you want to do here is start to make a list of all the procedures that you need to guide and manage the business. So here we're looking at this result of how do I implement strategy, how do I create strategy, and more importantly, how do I manage personnel? And you start to make a comprehensive list of every procedure that you need. Here we have 3 sub-functions. The first is called strategy, and here there are things like building an objective, having a customer relationship strategy, management training. This coloring system that you see here is to help the Touchstone system's way of helping people organize their lists. Red means the process hasn't been started yet, hasn't been documented. Blue means it's in the process of being documented, and black means that it's completed. Then in guiding the business, we have a management list. These are all the procedures that a business needs to manage its employees. The other day I saw a job description that came across from a business owner, and it had a lot of things in it, but the very first work item said, manage the sales department. That was it. That was the job description. Manage the sales department. If you create job descriptions like that, you're never going to get the results you're looking for, because manage the sales department, all that directive relies on that manager's experience, if he has any, of how to do that. It's not giving them any training, structure, guidelines, feedback, no real accountability. It's a completely vague statement. So instead of creating those kinds of objectives, think about all the procedures necessary to manage the sales department. That's what this list is about. What are all the management systems that your business is going to need so that managers manage effectively? So once you've done the guiding the business, then you'd move to getting the business. This is all of the marketing strategy processes, all those things we talked about around creating a marketing plan, doing competitive analysis, strategic alliances, and then advertising or lead generation, not just word of mouth and referral, although that needs a process, but all the proactive methods as well. All the things that you envision your business is going to need to do to effectively generate qualified leads. Then the sales process. Everything that you do to convert that lead. The series of steps that are followed to convert a lead. Then you would move to doing the business or operations. If you're a service business, this title would say service. If you're in construction, these are your construction procedures. So customize your list based on your industry, particularly in the doing the business area, and then make a list of all the key procedures that need to happen to effectively deliver your product or service. This is absolutely essential to the profitable running of your production department. If you're going to hire the entry-level positions, like we demonstrated here in the organization chart, you're going to hire here, you need to think about what are the procedures that I want to train these entry-level positions in. Then what are the procedures that the lead technicians are going to have to be have mastered to be delivering it for 60 cents on every dollar? So if you're going to measure efficiencies and know who's the most productive and how to train the others who aren't, you have to have procedures to train them in. So here, again, in the doing the business list, we would come up with all of those procedures. If you deal with inventory, you have a warehouse, shipping and receiving, you definitely want to have procedures for that. This is also waste, overruns, mismanagement of materials is also where a lot of money is lost, particularly in a production company. Then here's that customer service list. This is what the customer service representative position does. How to handle problems, how to deal with issues that come up, how to do quality control. Then lastly, there's the running of the business, the administration and finance department. Here we've got some basic administrative procedures that need to exist. All the human resource things I discussed, recruiting and hiring, agreements, contracts, employee handbook, and all the finance things, the simple data entry procedures, then the more extensive things like if you have a profit sharing plan, doing job costing, financial statements, inventory control. And then here's a few procedures for the maintenance of your hardware and software systems. So once you've got this comprehensive list, you would then go back to your organization chart and start building your job descriptions. You take a look at your list, you have it out in front of you, and you start assigning accountability for the processes. So if I had my guiding the business list with my management processes in front of me, I would go to the managerial positions and start listing them on their job descriptions, thereby creating the job descriptions. You're assigning accountability for all these processes over here to the organization. creating the job descriptions. Now, the next step after the job descriptions are done is to actually document the procedures for how all this work is done. All the job description is a table of contents for a bigger operating manual that needs to exist. Job descriptions aren't meant to have a full explanation of how to do all this work. They're just a listing of what they're accountable for, what the position is accountable for. In addition to this, you ultimately need fully documented procedures for how all this work is done. So this is an example of some tools that we use to document procedures, to give you some ideas on the kinds of things that work. This is a fully documented procedure for performance review, right up here, performance review process. Very first tool you see is called a work plan. A work plan is a step-by-step procedure full of a lot of information to guide someone through how to accomplish a process. Work plans should have as much detail as possible in them. The better your work plans are, the more valuable they're going to be for your business, and the easier it's going to be to train people. When people ask me, well, how detailed or how good do my work plans need to be? I always say go as detailed as possible, because the more information you put down here, the more valuable they are. And I'll give you an example. Imagine you were going to purchase a business from someone, and you walked into the guy's office and sat down and you said, okay, I'm going to buy your business. Explain to me, show me how to do the work. And the guy sat there and said, okay, you see Joe over there, watch what he does. He kind of just handles the phone calls and gets the orders done. And here's what I do. I call all these people and I handle the problems. And he spent hours telling you everything that he did. That's not a business. That's Joe and him and what they do. There's nothing there. There's nothing tangible for you to walk away with. The minute those people leave, you've got nothing but a pile of customers and maybe very little information about what to do. Now imagine another scenario. You walk in, sit down in front of the guy you're going to buy the business from, and he says to you, let me show you my business. Let me show you every procedure for all the work that exists. And he pulls out work plans and checklists and scripts and says, let me show you what Joe does. It's all here documented. Now that's a business worth buying. My point is, every time you build a procedure, you are building your asset. You're building tangible value. So this is the reason to really invest a lot in your work plans and your documentation, not just so you can train and hold employees accountable and run things profitably, if that wasn't enough, but because it builds the value of your business. So here again, work plans, tasks in sequential orders, fully documented. The end result here should be that I can take this work plan, hand it to someone who's competent, and they can read it and know how to do the procedure. Another great tool for documenting systems is checklists. If you've got a complicated procedure that's got a lot of details and intricate steps, checklists are really great because they can keep an employee on track. The checklist doesn't fully describe to them everything to do. It just reminds them. The work plan fully describes everything that they do. The checklist just is a reminder of the key steps. Checklists are also extremely useful for management purposes. If I delegate work for someone to do and I tell them, this is what I want you to do, and then they go off and do it, I'm really unsure of to the degree they did it and the results they actually produced. It's all I have as a management tool is reference to my communication to that person. And it becomes, I told you this and she said that. Very intangible. But if I have a checklist and I hand it to you and say, this is the work, go do it, and you check it off as you go, suddenly I have a tool that I can manage you with. So this is another reason why checklists are extremely effective. Another tool for documenting systems is scripts. Scripts are very useful when you want to educate someone quickly. So I hear all the time from business owners, I could never document a system for this because it's taken me 10 years of experience to be able to do it myself. So there's no way I can document 10 years of experience. Well, maybe you can't document 10 years of experience, but I bet you could get pretty close. You could take, in any given situation, there is a routine that happens. We don't notice the routine because we're so focused on the variables. The variables come up and it just it throws everyone for a loop and they don't focus on the routine. In your scripting in all your procedures, for that matter, focus on what's routine. It's about 80%. It really is. I've been doing this work a long time and it's about 80%. So with your scripts, think about what's routine, what's commonly said, what are the common objections, and what are the answers to those. Document all that. You can do workflow scripts that document an entire conversation with if-then scenarios. You can do objection scripts where you list a whole series of objections, things that come up in the sales process, situations. You put those into the prompt side, and then on the script side, you document what the response is. When your employees memorize these scripts, they are literally taking knowledge and inputting it into their brain. That's what learning's about. You memorize something and then you repeat it in your own words. So you're taking knowledge and you're giving it to them through scripting. This section of Touchstone is called uploaded files. And what happens here is you can take PowerPoint presentations, PDF documents, Excel spreadsheets, Word documents, and upload them to the Touchstone server. There they can be viewed when the system is being used. So the point I want to make here is think about other tools available that don't necessarily fit into these formats. If you've got a system that has calculations that need to be measured and quantified, a spreadsheet would be great. You'd always want to have a work plan in addition to that explaining how to use the spreadsheet. Anytime you can take a picture of something, visuals are really good for documenting procedures. You can store that in a PDF and have it accessible as part of the system. This next tool is called a form, and that's all it is, a simple form. A lot of systems in businesses are forms that are filled out. A form is a way of collecting information in a consistent format and then disseminating it somewhere else. The issue with forms is that employees don't fill them out, they fill them out wrong, they're late, they're illegible, all of the above. So what you need in addition to the form is a work plan for how to fill it out. A detailed instruction for how to use the form, step-by-step instructions with standards and guidelines around how the form is used. Every employee would be then trained in that documented system, and they would then therefore use the form correctly. If you have a documented training and you take them through it, and then they understand it, they sign off that they've done it, and then they fill the form out wrong again, that gives, again, a manager a tool to go back to. You point to the process and say, hey, you were trained in this, you signed off, what's the problem? This is an example of, again, how these systems can be really great management tools. The last tool we have here is called a policy note. All a policy is it's a rule around how to do something. It's a guideline. It's a standard. The thing that makes policies work is that they're documented. That's the most important thing. I think the latest statistic I heard is that you have to tell someone something 20 times before they get it. Now, not everyone's like that all the time, but that's the average, 20 times. This is why it's so frustrating to try to train employees when you have no systems. The minute you document a policy and the employee reads it and checks it off that they agree, it brings on a whole new importance to that policy. So think about what kinds of policies your systems would have. If you've got legal or compliance issues, policies can be really important. Another effective use for policies is when you want to shape or change your culture. If you've got a negative influence, something that employees have learned from other employees, something you want to change in the culture, the simplest, easy way to do it is to come up with a new policy and enforce it. That's dramatic, quick change. So this is an example of a fully documented procedure. And ultimately what you want to have for your business is the organization chart, number one. built for the future, the profitability goals laid out, some kind of mini financial plan like we talked about before that helps you go from where you are now to where you want to be in the future. Then you want to document the job descriptions for every box on the chart. Then ultimately, you want to go in and create the procedures for how to do all the work using some form of tools that will fully document the procedures. The best scenario for developing your business is from the bottom up. So work to systematize these positions here first. That means build the job descriptions and build the procedures for these positions first. Then move up to the next level. Then the next. This is thoroughly building the business. Again, what a lot of small business owners try to do is hire from the top. So I try to hire the production manager. No systems or procedures are built. I hire this person. I say, oh, save me. Now you fix this whole department. You make it work. Here again, that's trying to get lucky. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. Or you try to hire at this position. Build your business from the bottom up. Build these positions first, document the job descriptions and the training, and then hire those positions in and move up from there. So this, again, has been a presentation on building organization charts.